Hi there, this is Ramey coming at you today with a new YouTube video in which I'm going to be going over the 5 rules of money. I wrote this post probably about a year and a half ago, but I considered it a foundation post, something that is so important that it's one of the first things that I wrote about, the 5 money rules, as you can see here, that if people follow these rules and start to implement them in their lives, they will become financially free and they will be on that path towards financial freedom. Which is very important. So today I wanted to go over this outline and just kind of explain what this means to me, and hopefully educate a little bit on how I've been able to be on that path of financial freedom and keep trending that way. So the first rule, and you'll see a lot of these have commonalities between other financial bloggers. A lot of them have written on this topic themselves. So this isn't any new knowledge if you're in the personal finance sphere, and if you're not, welcome. If this is brand new to you, that's great. You're starting in the right place. The more that we can increase financial literacy for everybody in the world, I think that's one of the best things that we can do as personal finance bloggers and investing bloggers. So the number one rule is spend less than you earn. That's the pinnacle of the reason why it's number one. It's a pinnacle of living. It doesn't matter how much money you make. If you spend more than you're making, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be going into debt. And that's what a lot of people face with. They might be making 100K a year, but their lifestyle, they're spending 200K a year. They're having to borrow $100,000 every year, thinking, hey, I'll make it up along the way. Hey, it'll be made whole somewhere along the way. Well, that's a way to be trapped in debt, and it's not the path towards financial freedom. So the first rule, you have to spend less than you earn. It doesn't matter if you make 50,000 a year, 100, 500, a million, whatever. You want to make sure you're living within your means. I actually wrote a book, and I just want to do a little excerpt, Simple Budgeting, as a exercise in how you can look to do this. There's 2 ways. You obviously, if you're spending more than you're earning, then you either need to increase your earning power or decrease your expenses. Ideally, do both of those at the same time. So increase that earning power, decrease expenses. And there's 3 main categories of expenses that everybody can look at. And again, this is in my book, Simple Budgeting. I'll actually go over a little bit of what these are real quick. The first one is going to be fixed expenses. Those are expenses that you can't change, that you have to live. I mean, everybody needs a place to stay, whether this is a house, apartment, whatever. Everybody needs power to heat that house, to make everything run smoothly, water, garbage service, basically anything that is going to be associated with the fixed expense. Now these can go up and down. For instance, if I come over here and let's say I'm spending, $4,000 a year, I mean, if I can get that down with this budget, that's going to be, overspending by 2,000 a month. If I can get that down to only 2,000, all of a sudden, hey, I'm spending, I'm basically breaking even. So while these fixed expenses are fixed in the sense of, hey, you need to have these to live, you can do things to reduce those down and make it a little bit more manageable. So that's something that I always have people look at. What are your fixed expenses? The next are, what are your necessity expenses? And what's the difference between fixed and necessity? Well, fixed expenses are basically those things that you're always going to have to pay no matter what. Necessity expenses are the same, but I also believe that they're a lot more changeable in the sense of, I mean, if we look at some of the items on this list, groceries, 120 bucks a month. Yep, everybody needs to eat. Gas, you might need to get to a job. This could be flexible, but these could change a lot depending on how you adjust your lifestyle. It could be, if I go up to 400 for groceries, obviously I'm spending more, but let's say I find a way to, start eating for $80 a month. Well, that's a necessity expense. I need to eat, but I can change that up quite a bit. That's why I kind of have it a little bit different than a fixed expense. So that's everybody needs to start by identifying those fixed expenses, necessity expenses. Those are things that most of the time you're going to need to have in your life. But that, necessity you can probably change up a lot more than fixed. You can still change up fixed. It just might take a little bit more work. And the last thing that people need to look at are discretionary expenses. And again, this all comes back to the rules of money over here. We're looking at ways to cut expenses or change them so that we can live a better lifestyle and achieve financial freedom. So these are all things that you can look at that you don't need in your life. Cleaning, I used to have a cleaner at my old house. I don't have that anymore, so I don't need that. That's a very highly discretionary expense. I mean, I was happy to have her on the payroll and have her come and help me. I was able to focus elsewhere, so the ROI made sense. But from that perspective, that's a discretionary expense. Gym membership, discretionary. Supplies, a lot of the time, are discretionary. I don't need the things that I buy. I choose to buy them, and these are the things that I look at. That if you really want to start cutting, you start here. This could be things such as your cable, your internet. Various things that you can do to start getting this rule number one in line, spending less than you earn. So if you want a place to start, identify your fixed expenses, identify your necessity expenses, and identify your discretionary expenses. I really look to see where you can trim those. And up here on your income, spending or earning more, look to see where you can earn. I mean, is there a side business that you can start up that you can work that's not going to completely drain your energy and allow you to start making more money. So really start to look at that as a way of increasing this number one rule. But just to summarize it up, again, you always need to spend less than you earn or earn more than you spend, and that's the pinnacle of the 5 rules of money. Now, once you start to master that, you can start to achieve this second rule, creating an emergency fund. And there's some statistic, and I'd have to look it up. I don't want to Google it here right now, but it's something where 70% of Americans couldn't come up with $400 if an emergency hit them, and I just find that just crazy, and it just goes to speak to how people might be living over their means right now, might be financially illiterate, and again, I think that that's something that the financial sector wants to happen. Banks, they want you to be able to manage your money well, but they also want late fees because that's kind of how they make money. They want you to borrow, so that's important for them. But the second biggest thing that everybody can do is create that emergency fund. So I had to get a little bit of coffee here. This to me has been one of the most single ways that I've been able to live stress-free in my life, is just knowing that I have enough money to cover expenses if anything happens in my life. Let's say a medical procedure comes up. I've dislocated this pinky probably about 3 or 4 times playing basketball. And it's something where to get that set, like I was able to set it once, somebody was there to do it, but the other 2 times I couldn't get it back in. So I had to bring myself into the ER room to have them reset it. And each of those bills, hospital bills, cost me, I think, $1,200. And granted, I have HSAs in place and various things which helps to pay that. But if that's a bill that's coming my way and I don't have that covered by an emergency fund, oh, that's gonna hurt. So that's something that's I think is just such a big rule. But again, it can only be accomplished if people are building on that first rule of starting to save more because they're spending less, or they're spending less than they earn. So you have to live by that rule number 1. And once you get that down, you start to live by rule number 2. Now, what I typically target is to have 6 months versus 1 year to 1 year of salary or income saved. Now, that's a high level number. I mean, if you just had 2-3 months worth, maybe a cushion of $5,000, $10,000, I mean that's pretty good, and the rest is in the stock market or wherever else it needs to be. But ideally, if we can hit that 6 months to 1 year worth of salary income saved, that's kind of where the bread and butter's at. For myself, I know I try to look for that 25K mark. That's kind of where I feel comfortable holding those funds. I hold it in a money market account that earns me, I think it's 1.9% interest now. It used to be 2%, but the Fed is lowering interest rates. So I'm sure that's going to keep going down. And if it does, that's going to be where I might look to start deploying more of that into stocks. Those have been doing very well. I've got a dividend portfolio that's generating $5,653.77 of income per year that I'm reinvesting via drip. So I'm always looking to buy more stocks. I still have a lot of capital to deploy. I'm just waiting for good valuation points and making sure I don't dump it all in at once, and then have the markets tank on me, because I've been watching those. So, but getting off topic a little bit, you always want to have that rule number 2. You always want to have an emergency fund created that you can use for emergencies only. And I highlighted that primarily because that emergency fund, we don't want to fall into that trap of saying, oh, I really want this thing from Amazon, or oh, I really need this, go to this concert, let's tap in the emergency fund. That's not an emergency. So you want to set whatever level it is that you're comfortable with, that that you can cover some of those expenses. and say that I'm going to live at that level, and that's going to be the level of emergency fund. And I'm not going to touch it unless it's an emergency that I need to cover. Okay. All right. So rule number 3, we're going to save and invest the rest. And we have a Caesar sighting. That's my cat. Caesar, move. Um, so rule number 3, we want to save or invest the rest. Yeah, so the biggest point is once you start to practice rule number 1, you're building up a savings, you have that emergency fund. Let's say you have $10,000 invested in there. Well, you want to be investing the rest. And I mean, ideally with all of this, you're already contributing to your 401k. I mean, if you go back here, if we're looking at the necessity expenses, I have savings account, early house payoff in here as an expense. That's something you should look at your 401k as in here. So you're already investing in that. You'll always get company match, no matter what. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table. But once you start to get to that point where you're saving money, you got an emergency fund built up, 401k is going well. Now you want to start investing the rest on your own. Now, a lot of you, I mean, you probably want to be able to put that money into that 401k, and that's great. Keep building that up, maxing out. I think that's a great option for a lot of people, even though I hate the fees that are associated with that. But if you do want to get in the world of personal investing, it's something that, and you have the acumen, the drive to do it, you can definitely look at doing it. I personally have been buying up stocks that pay dividends. And if we hop over here to my portfolio, I mean, I have 36 positions, $5,600 worth of income, $159,000 in the portfolio. I still have a lot of capital to invest, but I try to buy into companies that are that I know and trust and utilize on a daily basis. So anytime that I, for instance, fill up my gas tank at BP, I'm a happy camper because I'm helping support a company that I own. I have an AT&T cell phone. Whenever I use that phone, I'm helping to support a company that I own that's my highest annual dividend income payer. Procter & Gamble, Tide. I mean, there's so many things that I look on here. Starbucks, coffee. It's just great to see that these companies that I own are ones that I am utilizing their services on a daily basis. So whether or not you decide to go the route of self-investing, or there's other great options too. Like I know a lot of funds out there. There's some really good dividend funds. Vanguard has some excellent mutual funds that are very low cost, exchange traded funds like ETFs that you can put your money into, which have a lot lower costs than some of the investment options that I've seen out in 401ks out there. Again, I'm not for 401k. I don't know. I'd always get company match on it. I don't think I'd max it out. I'd probably do company match, and then anything above that, I'd invest on my own, just because I think I can get just as good of returns with zero cost as somebody else out there managing the funds can do. So that's just something I do. But the biggest thing with rule number 3 is keep investing that, keep putting that money into the markets, whether it's a fund, whether it's, it doesn't matter. You can't just have it under your cushion. You want to be investing that. That's really where you're going to be making a lot of those gains. And if anybody is interested in learning the dividend investing strategy, I did just publish my second book, Simple Investing, the dividend investing strategy to grow your passive income. I'll link to it here in the show notes. And then I'll also show you that you can come over to my site and look at that, and it's for purchase on Amazon paperback or Kindle. So, okay, great. So that's rule number 1, 2, 3. Now we get on to rule number 4. Capitalize on your skills and start a side endeavor. Now this one could be, these rules aren't in chronological order. I mean, to be honest, you can do all of these at once. I put rule number 4 as, start a side endeavor, because I kind of feel like that's a good time to do it when you have everything else kind of running on autopilot. It's just to kind of start seeing, hey, what skills do I have that I can utilize and turn into something that I, try to make money with on a daily basis. And I know that's why Uber and Lyft were so great for a lot of people, especially in the beginning, and even now, where a lot of people, they just like meeting people, being in the car, driving around, maybe listening to a podcast while they're doing it. And that's why I think that the free market system is so great, because these companies built this technology and they said there's all these people that probably could do this. And they started to do it. They did it as a side endeavor, and it ended up being excellent for them. So that's just one example of a side endeavor that you can do. I know for myself in the past, I've helped with some landscaping stuff. I really enjoy that. I'm currently building out websites. That's actually more of a business thing, not a side endeavor. But I'll be honest, a lot of businesses start off as side endeavors, and then people see like, oh my gosh, this thing is actually doing pretty dang well for me, and they start building that into a business. So that side endeavor that you start today could turn into a business of tomorrow. So always be on the lookout for that, and always, see if there's anything that you really enjoy doing that you could turn into that side endeavor. And last but not least, rule number 5, own income generating assets that produce passive income streams. So at Money by Ramey, our whole thing is to teach financial freedom to the universe. In order to do that, I'm looking to become, how can I become more financially free on a daily basis? And the biggest thing that I know how is passive income, making money while I sleep. And right now, the best way of passive income that I know of is dividend paying stocks. I feel like investing is a good skill set of mine. It's something that I have that I can utilize on a daily basis, and I really enjoy that income stream. But I'm always looking to grow that income stream. So I'm looking into certain things like maybe buying a duplex, buying a mini storage facility, and kind of looking at some trends at prosper.com where you can make small micro loans to people. And those are things where you're owning an asset that can generate that passive income stream. Because where I'm trying to get from, and where all financial freedom seekers need to get to, is get to a point where you can divorce yourself from trading your hours for work. That could be a product that you sell. That could be getting paid per project. That could be a lot of those things. So that's really important to try to develop those passive income streams, which I put as its own separate rule because I think it goes above and beyond a side endeavor. Because a lot of times, like a side hustle, driving for Lyft. You drive for Lyft, you're pretty keyed in on I'm driving. I can't really do anything else. I'm trading my hours for work. But if you're the person that owns the technology behind that, Lyft, the Ubers, that's where the money's at. Because all you do is produce this technology, this product. Other people use it. They get paid. You take a cut. I mean, that's where the passive income's at. It's a lot harder to generate, obviously. I even have in here, I know some people buy Lime or Bird scooters. That's kind of passive. I've heard what you have to do with that is you have to actually go find them, recharge them, and put them back out. I mean, it's a little bit of work, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's somewhat passive. So that's something that I think is important to try to just figure out, hey, how can I earn money passively? And again, dividend stocks is a great way. If you have money that makes interest, that's another great way. So there's things that we can do just very easy that our money's going to work for us, that our money's making money for us, and I think that that's an amazing thing. But there's also other things that we can do where we can go out there and start to generate capital ourselves. So that's the 5 rules of money presented by moneybyramey.com. And occasionally I'll create an infographic, or actually my staff will create an infographic. So you can come out here, download that. Really appreciate if you go, share that across the site. Feel free to leave me a comment too. I always love hearing more comments, whether it's on YouTube channel, on my site. I just would really like to understand what my audience is going through, what you're looking at. If I can answer any questions. I'm thinking about putting an AMA on here, or ask me a question, because I like answering. I like learning. I like studying. I like anything that I can learn. And if you if anything, any of this is interesting as far as the budgeting process, or even learning the dividend investing strategy, you can come out here to the Simple series. It's a little drop down, and you can look to buy either of these books. And again, I wrote these all. Simple Investing, I've been learning the dividend investing strategy for 15 plus years. It's something that I am well versed in, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can and teach that, help other people on their journey towards financial freedom. And Simple Budgeting is the same, the easy 8-step process. I actually wrote this book first because, again, I think it's more of a foundational piece for financial freedom. But even if you want to come over here, I've got the 8-step process. I lay it out here for you, and I also made a video on that too. So feel free to check that out. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. I'm looking to grow this channel, and I'd love to keep you updated on some things that we're doing here. So that being said, hopefully you enjoyed it. The rules of money, and hopefully it helps you in your financial freedom journey. This is Ramey. Peace.